What if you walked away from everything you built? Your empire, your wealth, your identity, only to find the most important thing wasn't what you had, but what you could rebuild. The Wyoming wind screamed across the desolate plains, a late autumn dirge that carried shards of frost and dust. Highway 287 stretched like a scar through the endless expanse, its cracked asphalt fading into the twilight. A lone figure limped along the shoulder, barefoot, her silk dress, once a symbol of untouchable elegance, now torn and streaked with dirt. Blood dripped from her left foot, leaving crimson smudges on the gravel. Her hair, a cascade of tangles, whipped across her face, and her eyes, wide with a mix of fear and defiance, searched the horizon for something she couldn't name. Claire Lockwood was unraveling. The billionaire CEO of Lockwood Enterprises, a name synonymous with power and precision, had vanished from her meticulously curated life. She left behind a private jet, a stage engagement to a media darling, and a corporate empire that bowed to her every word. Hours ago, or was it days? She walked away, driven by a primal urge to escape the cage of her own making. Now, each step ground gravel into her soles, and the cold clawed at her bones. She was no longer the untouchable titan. She was Claire, and Claire was lost. Headlights sliced through the gathering dark, pinning her in their glare. A battered pickup truck slowed, its engine coughing like a weary beast. Claire froze, her pulse hammering. Run, her instinct screamed, but her body swayed, betraying her with exhaustion. The driver's door creaked open, and a man stepped out, broad-shouldered, clad in a faded flannel shirt and grease-stained jeans. His face, etched by years of sun and sorrow, held no threat, only a quiet concern that felt alien to her guarded world. "You all right, miss?" His voice was low, steady, like the hum of a well-tuned engine. He stayed where he was, hands in his pockets, giving her space. "You're hurt." Claire's throat tightened. She wanted to lie, to say she was fine, but the truth was carved in her trembling hands and the blood pooling beneath her foot. I don't know where I am," she whispered, the words barely audible over the wind. The man nodded, as if her confession was the most natural thing in the world. "Name's Earl Danner. Got a garage a few miles up. Coffee's hot, and I've got a first aid kit. No strings attached." He gestured to the truck, leaving the choice to her. Suspicion flared in Claire's chest. She spent a decade navigating boardrooms where every smile hit a dagger. But Earl's eyes, clear, unguarded, held no agenda. They were the eyes of someone who'd seen enough of life to know when to push and when to wait. She nodded, limping toward the truck. As she climbed in, the cab's warmth enveloped her, and for the first time in days, the edges of her panic dulled. Earl's garage was a squat, cinder-block relic tucked in a valley framed by jagged, snow-dusted mountains. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oil, metal, and something faintly like cedar. Tools lined the walls, each hung with care, like artifact of forgotten craft. Earl led Claire to a worn leather couch in the corner, handing her a chipped mug of black coffee and a wool blanket that smelled of wood smoke. Without a word, he knelt to clean her injured foot, his hands steady and practiced, as if mending broken things was his calling. "You don't ask questions," Claire said, her voice hoarse, watching him wrap her foot in gauze. Earl shrugged, not looking up. "Figure you'll talk when you're ready. Or not. Either way, you're safe here." Safe. The word landed like a stone in still water, rippling through her. Claire sipped the coffee, its bitterness grounding her. She didn't tell him who she was. Not the CEO whose face graced Forbes covers. Not the woman who'd orchestrated a $10 billion merger while planning her own engagement party. The world she left felt like a fever dream, and she wasn't ready to wake. Days bled into weeks, and Claire stayed. Earl offered her the small apartment above the garage, a Spartan space with a cot, a sink, and a window overlooking the valley. She slept deeply for the first time in years, lulled by the silence of a world untouched by corporate deadlines or paparazzi flashes. Earl gave her tasks, sorting bolts, polishing chrome, holding a flashlight while he wrestled with a rusted carburetor. The work was tactile, honest, unlike the abstract chess of her old life. Her hands, once manicured for gala appearances, grew calloused, and she found a strange pride in their roughness. Earl was a widower. She learned, though he spoke of his late wife, Sarah, in fragments. Cancer took her 3 years ago, he said one evening, as they sat on the porch, the sky ablaze with stars. She loved this valley, said it was where the world made sense. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried a grief that hadn't faded. Life's like an engine, she used to say. Sometimes it sputters, but you keep tuning it till it runs smooth. Claire listened, her own pain stirring. She'd buried her sputters under ambition, building an empire to silence the girl who'd once dreamed of painting, of a life unscripted. Here, in Earl's world, that girl was waking up. She laughed, actually laughed, when Earl taught her to change a spark plug, her fingers smudged with grease. She told him pieces of herself. Not the CEO, but the child who'd sketched landscapes in secret, the teenager who'd traded dreams for duty. Earl listened, his silence a canvas for her truths. But the past is relentless, and Claire's was stalking her. One morning, while organizing a toolbox, she found her bag, forgotten in a corner since that first night. Her phone, dead for weeks, hummed to life as it caught a signal. Notifications flooded the screen. Missed calls, emails, texts from her assistant, her fiancé, her board. Claire, where you? The merger's collapsing. The press is calling it a scandal. Her empire was fracturing, and the weight of it threatened to drag her back. That night, Claire sat on the porch, the phone a cold weight in her hand. Earl joined her, offering a mug of chamomile tea. Trouble? He asked, nodding at the device. She hesitated, then let the truth spill. I'm Claire Lockwood, the Claire Lockwood. I ran a company worth billions. I had a life everyone envied, a fiancé, a penthouse, power. But it was killing me. I walked away, but now they're calling me back. Earl leaned back, his gaze on the mountains. What do you want, Claire? Not them. You. The question was a blade, cutting through years of noise. What did she want? She'd chased power to prove her worth, approval to fill a void, control to mask her fear. But here in this valley, she'd found something else. Peace, purpose, a self she hadn't known existed. Could she return to a life that hollowed her out? Or could she choose the woman she was becoming? Even if it meant losing everything? What would you do if the world you built demanded your return, but the life you found begged you to stay? The question haunted her through the night. By dawn, Claire knew she couldn't stay. Not yet. Her company employed thousands, and her absence was a wrecking ball. But she wouldn't return as the old Claire. She'd face her responsibilities, then forge a new path. She told Earl over breakfast, her voice steady but her heart splintering. I'll come back, she promised, handing him a sketch she'd drawn. A cottage by the ocean, its windows glowing with warmth. This is what I want. Someday. Earl smiled, tucking the sketch into his pocket. I'll hold you to it. New York was a maelstrom. Claire's return sparked chaos. Board members demanded resignations. Her fiancé accused her of betrayal, and the press branded her a reckless enigma. But Claire was done playing their game. She dismantled her engagement, revealing it as a publicity stunt orchestrated by her board. She restructured Lockwood Enterprises, appointing a trusted COO to steer it. The merger collapsed, but she didn't care. She was shedding her old skin. Then came the twist no one expected. Claire announced she was stepping down as CEO. She donated 90% of her wealth, billions, to education, mental health, and community programs, keeping only enough for a modest life. The world screamed. Headlines called her mad, a traitor to her legacy. Her former fiancé leaked private texts, painting her as unstable. But Claire was free, and freedom was a fire nothing could extinguish. In Wyoming, Earl received a package. Inside were legal documents transferring ownership of his land and the entire valley to him, along with a note in Claire's handwriting. Build something meaningful. You taught me how. He stared at the papers, the weight of her trust sinking in. Inspired, he started the Rebuild Initiative, a workshop where locals learned practical skills: welding, carpentry, mechanics. Kids tinkered with engines, veterans found purpose, and single parents gained confidence. The valley, once silent, hummed with life. Earl didn't advertise, but word spread, and the project grew, a testament to the quiet kindness that had changed Claire. But the story wasn't over. 6 months later, a stranger arrived at the garage. A man in a tailored suit, his polished shoes absurd against the gravel. He introduced himself as Victor Crane, a lawyer representing Lockwood Enterprises. Ms. Lockwood's actions have consequences, he said, his voice clipped. Her donations have destabilized the company. Shareholders are suing. They want her back, or they want the valley. Earl's jaw tightened. She gave me this land. It's mine. Crane's smile was cold. Ownership can be contested. Ms. Lockwood's mental state is questionable. The courts may not honor her decisions. The threat hung in the air, a shadow over everything Earl had built. He didn't tell Claire, not yet. She'd fought enough battles. But the Rebuild initiative was at risk, and with it, the community it served. Earl spent sleepless nights poring over the documents, consulting a local lawyer who warned him the case was shaky. The valley and all it stood for could be lost. Spring arrived, painting the valley in vibrant green. One evening, as Earl locked the garage, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the lot. Claire, dressed in jeans and a sweater, her hair loose and streaked with sunlight, walked toward him. "I bought that cottage," she said, a shy smile breaking through. "I'm done with the empire. I want to stay." Earl's grin was wide, but his eyes held a shadow. He told her about Crane, the lawsuit, the threat to the valley. Claire's face hardened, the fire of her old self flaring. "They won't take this from us," she said. "I'll fight." Together, they strategized. Claire hired a legal team, using the last of her funds to counter the shareholders' claims. She uncovered evidence of her board's manipulation, forged documents, hidden accounts that had fueled the lawsuit. The case went to court, and Claire testified, her voice unwavering as she recounted her journey from corporate titan to valley dreamer. The judge ruled in their favor, affirming Earl's ownership and dismissing the shareholders' claims. The victory was bittersweet. Claire's wealth was gone, her name tarnished in the corporate world. But she was home. She and Earl dreamed up the Claire Lockwood Center for Practical Learning, a place where anyone could learn to fix, build, and heal. The locals called it the Fix-It Place, and became a beacon for those seeking purpose. Kids learned to weld, elders taught woodworking, and Claire taught a class on resilience, sharing her story with raw honesty. One evening, as they walked to the porch, the valley alive with the sound of laughter and clanging tools, Claire and Earl paused. Their footprints overlapped in the soft earth, a quiet promise of a shared journey. The center wasn't just a building. It was a legacy of kindness, courage, and connection. Claire had found her answer, not in power or wealth, but in the stillness of authenticity, the man who'd shown her how to rebuild, and the community that had become her family. The ending was clear. Claire and Earl weren't just survivors. They were builders. The valley, once a refuge, was now a beacon, proof that broken things could be mended and lost souls could find their way home.